Hey everyone. Sorry, seem to have a little issue tonight with going live on YouTube, but I think I'm there. So glad you guys are joining us tonight. And I want us to remember a dear friend of mine from church, Diana Hooser, lost her mother Sunday to cancer. She was at home in hospice care. So please pray for that family. Services are tomorrow. So remember them. Also, thank you all for many prayers and the texts and emails that I've gotten from so many of you because my wife and I had COVID, Mona and I had COVID, and we're doing much, much better. Okay. Actually recovered from it. For those of you who know me, I'm going back to the gym next week. So doing much, much better. So thank you so much for your prayers, and I hope to see you Sunday. Hey, I've been thinking about what to talk about this evening, and I titled it, What Do You Do When Your World Seems to Be Falling Apart? Now, my world is not falling apart, okay? I am good. My wife is good. My whole family's good. But talking to so many of you and watching the news, and I don't really watch the news, but reading and what little bit I do watch, some of you guys believe that your world is falling apart. So I want to give you guys some hope as you face things today. You know, Psalm 23:4 says, Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You know, on these days, if you turn on the news, you know it's what? It's bad news. If you read the news, you know it's what? It's bad news. If you pick up your phone and you get an alert, you know it's what? It's bad news. You jump in the car, you put on your favorite radio station, and they have a news section. It's what? Guess what? It's more bad news. And it just seems like bad news just surrounds us today. And quite frankly, it's making me angry, because there's so much. But I want you to understand we live in a fallen world, okay? A world that continues to reject God a little more every single day. The world we live in has pushed God out. I had lunch with one of my best friends today, and we were talking about this. And when we push God out, Satan comes in, wickedness comes in to replace him. So I mean, I'm almost 61, and I remember when prayer was in school, and so many things were different. But today is different than when I grew up. Satan is that wickedness that replaces God. Satan is this in 2 Corinthians 4:4 says this, the God of this age has blinded the minds of unbelievers so that they cannot see the light of the gospel that displays the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. Man, you think about that. You think about our world today, politics and media and social media and everything else. The God of this age, our enemy, has blinded unbelievers. You gotta see it, man. You gotta see it. And you wonder why this world we live in is almost in a like a perpetual disaster, you know? But when we push God out, Satan is waiting to fill that void. Okay? And in Matthew 12, Jesus says this, when an evil spirit leaves a person, it travels through the desert looking for a place to rest. When the demon doesn't find a place, it says, I'll go back to the home I left. When it gets there and finds the place empty, clean and fixed up, it goes off and finds seven other evil spirits, even worse than itself. They all come and make their home there, and the person ends up in worse shape than before. That's how it will be with you evil people of today. Listen, we've allowed Satan to fill the void by removing God a little more every day. Okay? That's not just for unbelievers. That's for you and I, okay? Satan tells us, you know, what he has for us in this world. He will fill our deepest desires, man. He's a righteous person. He wants us to have fun. He wants this lifestyle to be exciting. Total opposite of what Jesus says. Jesus says, I've come to give you an abundant life. That abundant life doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be happy all the time, okay? But Satan wants to give that to you and wants you to believe that everything is fine, everything is good. Just continue doing what you do. You don't have to follow God. Isaiah 5:20 says this, you are headed for trouble. You say wrong is right, darkness is light, and bitter is sweet. Man, as I think about the world that we live in today, what my grandkids will grow up in, you know, Satan's deeds, the things that Satan does are completely contrary to God's, but the world rarely takes notice as the world enjoys the sinful pleasures that Satan gives us, that Satan wants us to partake in. You know, the world rarely notices and really have lost sight of God and what is considered godly. Look at it today. You know, when I grew up, I remember going to the flagpole at Broussard Elementary School. It's still there, right behind the police station in Broussard. And every morning, the whole student body would get up and we would say the Pledge of Allegiance every Monday morning before we started the week. They had prayer in the classrooms in a secular school. But see, what happens is the world has its own moral compass, you know, which is the exact opposite of God's. And it still looks like a compass, and we tend to follow it. Well, how do we do that, Andy? You know, let me ask you guys this. Instead of being at church on Sunday mornings, where are many people? Our churches should be full right now because we are in a mess. We're in not only this pandemic or whatever you want to call it, but we are in a pickle right now. Yet our churches are empty. And it's not just what Youngsville Community Church, it's a lot of churches. Our churches should be packed to the brim with people just waiting to get in, yet they're following the compass, the moral compass of the world, you know, and as this spiritual switch continues, it begins to drag us down. It begins to drag Christians down. And I've discovered the more this occurs, the more we feel alone, the more we feel by ourselves, the more we begin to feel as if we're in the valley of the shadow of death. But listen, you know, you've probably discovered, if you're a Christian today, or if you have your own beliefs, you've discovered that Christians today are starting to be mocked for their faith, right, by the world. We are starting to be mocked for our faith. Scripture told us this in Second Peter, but first you must realize that in the last days some people don't think about anything except their own selfish desires. They will make fun of you and say, didn't your Lord promise to come back? Yet the first leaders have already died and the world hasn't changed a bit. How many of you have heard that? How many of you have been mocked for your faith? If you haven't been, it's coming. Listen, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not an end times guy, okay? But it's like I told my good friend today, there's no doubt in my mind that we are in the end times, okay? Because we are being mocked for our faith more than ever. You know, these days, families fight about religion, about politics. Let me just be frank with you about, are you vaccinated or are you not? Are you going to wear a mask in that store? Do you realize what's happening? Christians fight and bicker with one another just about over anything, just for the sake of argument, that causes friction and causes division between us, brothers and sisters in Christ. Do you realize that? Do you realize that the church is being divided? And Satan is using our current thing, our current predicament to divide the church. You know, Jesus said this, and you guys are going to know this. If a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. As the world attacks Christians and Christians attack Christians, I want you guys to think about this. What an awesome smile the devil has on his face. You know, what a great thing this is for him. What a victory it is for him. If Christian families and friends can't stand together, how can you and I stand against our enemy, which is continually dividing us from one another? There's so many people afraid today. And that's the spirit of fear that Satan, our enemy, has put in us, guys. You got to get past it. You know, there's so much bad news out there. You have to have the faith that Jesus is still on the throne. He's sitting at the right hand of the Father right now. And I can't help but think he's looking at us like, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? Whether you've done this or that, whether you followed this or that, you are my child. But it's the enemy's job, it's Satan's job to divide us. So there we have more bad news that we got to think about and we have to consider. You know, in all of this, one thing is certain, guys. One thing is true. When you can't count on your friends anymore, when you can't count on your family anymore, and I'm gonna go out on a limb, when you can't count on Christians anymore, never ever forget this. God has always been there waiting, and you can count on him. You know, I pray that you got something out of tonight. And you know, this fear, we're in a pandemic, guys. It's called the pandemic of fear that's put in our minds and our hearts by Satan, our enemy. That's the only pandemic we have right now is fear. Fight it. Never forget, God is there. He hasn't left. He's still the Alpha and Omega, the King of Kings. He's still on the throne. He doesn't change. He is always there. So when you leave tonight, when you leave us tonight, I want you to think about that, okay? When you go out tomorrow, you go to work, you go to Costco or Walmart or wherever you may go to your family house, to your family members, think about this, guys. Think about this. Our world may seem like it's falling apart, but it's really not. Jesus is still in charge. Hey, listen, before I go, if you're looking for a place to go to church, you know, Youngsville Community Church is a great place. We're not perfect by far. We're just a bunch of broken, regular folks, okay? But we want you to come, want you to enjoy our service. Just come with clothes on, come dressed as you are at 9 or 10:30 our service times are, and we want to welcome you to join us. I want to thank you all for those of you who continue to give to our church. Because of you guys, we get to do ministry. We get to continue to do the things that God's called us to do. Hey, listen, God bless you guys, and we'll see you hopefully, no fear, in person Sunday. God bless you. Have a great rest of the week.